Well, it's a bit of a concerning situation if you are an Eagles fan. The Eagles, who at one point were, I believe they were 10-1, are most likely going to finish this season 11-6, going 1-5 down the stretch against the New York Giants in this game. They're just getting destroyed right now. I'm recording this at halftime. I'm assuming the Giants aren't going to come back and win because at this point, we kind of have everything we want to talk about. Even if Mariota has a great performance and they come back and win, the reality is with this Eagles team, this is just a disaster. This was a game they were trying to win. This wasn't one of those situations where you put in your backups, and it wasn't even a situation where you have nothing to play for. They had something to play for. If Washington loses to the Commanders and the Eagles win, you get the 2 seed instead of the 5 seed, which I think does make a pretty big difference. Even if you want to say, hey, a 7 seed versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not really that big of a jump. If anything, the 7 seed might be a little bit tougher in that first matchup. But you think down the line, if you wanted to go to the Super Bowl, you'd have to win 3 games on the road, so 3 straight weeks of traveling. On top of that, you're more likely to play San Francisco in the divisional round. If you're the 2 seed, then the earliest you can play San Francisco is the conference championship, meaning that there's a chance San Francisco could get knocked out before then, or if not, at least it's just you've gotten further into playoffs that way. So that's part of the concern and part of why this game mattered. And they didn't just lose to the New York Giants. They got destroyed by the New York Giants. It was 24-0, and then they said, Sirianni said, I've seen enough. He pulls Jalen Hurts after throwing an interception, which was, it was a bad throw, but they weren't getting guys open on the outside. And I think one of the big storylines that you have to talk about is A.J. Brown going down in this game. A.J. Brown getting injured, which that's kind of the, listen, they had something to play for, right? And I do think that typically I would say that the benefit of going out and winning a division in this scenario is still worth the potential risk of something like this happening. So I wouldn't maybe be as critical as some other people I'm sure will be of the, why do you even have your starters playing? I think it's more of a discussion when it's the Detroit Lions who had their starters playing, then they lost Sam Laporta, and it seems like he's going to be out for at least some time, although maybe not the whole season. So I think that's kind of more of a discussion because the Lions had nothing, technically the 2 versus the 3 seed, but that's not quite, it still matters. It still does matter. They could have gotten, they can get the 2 seed instead of the 3 seed, but not quite as big of a jump as the 2 seed to the 5 seed, which is kind of, a notable thing here. But, still, going back to the Eagles, whatever, you have an injury, you're getting crushed by, quite frankly, a bad football team. And this was a team that, you played a couple weeks ago, and that was close. And just looking at what has happened to Philadelphia since they beat the Bills, and that was kind of their signature win of the season. They beat the Chiefs and then the Bills, and even the Chiefs game, there was a drop pass in there that kind of allowed them to win. But still, hey, you won against a good football team in Kansas City, and you beat Buffalo, who feels like a great team right now with the way they're playing. And Buffalo was really good in that game, and you were able to hold on and win. But you're looking at what's happened this past 6 weeks, getting crushed by San Francisco, getting crushed by Dallas, losing to Drew Lock, barely beating the Giants, losing to Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, and now getting crushed by the Giants. This is one of the worst runs a team has had this season. Forget about a playoff team, just a team in general. Who's had a worse 6-week stretch than that? I'm sure there's some example you could look towards. I'm sure someone in the comments will have thought of one, but that's really tough. I can't think of one off the top of my head that's a worse stretch than that. Just a disaster. Maybe the way the Broncos started the season is the only one I can think about. And it's happening both ways. Their defense has played not great all season, but really has started playing terrible. And quite frankly, to me, you can't have Patricia still calling plays. Okay, stop that. You thought it would work. It didn't work. Get rid of that. That was I get why you did it. Time to go back. But then maybe you don't want to seem like you're flip-flopping, and maybe, I don't know, I would go back. I would flip-flop. I'd rather be seen like a flip-flopper than just go with a bad defensive coordinator here. But even so, it's not like the team's going to magically just get better, right, once you get a different defensive coordinator there. And also, Jalen Hurts got banged up in this game. Looked like he hurt his finger on his throwing hand. So it's if he's not 100%, Devonta Smith, I haven't talked about him. He missed this game due to injury. So, at this point, I mean, it's a bad defense, and if your offense isn't scoring points, well, I mean, you can't beat anybody right now. You can't beat the Giants, you can't beat the Cardinals. I know Tampa Bay looked rough today too, but it's like, are you going to win that game at this point? It doesn't seem too. Even if somehow you pull off a miracle comeback and win the division, are you going to beat the wild card team? I don't think so, and I certainly don't think that this team can beat like Dallas, Detroit, or San Francisco right now. Now, again, this video could age very poorly if they can, turn things around and come playoff time. But as of right now, it just looks like a mess right now. It just looks like an absolute disaster for the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, got to credit to the Giants to some degree. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, I do think, is an underrated player, although he did have that bad interception. It also was a little funny when they bring in Mariota and he immediately throws an interception. Just kind of one of those days. But it's like some of the stuff, like, how are you leaving Saquon Barkley wide open in that scenario? Like, how is that happening, right? Like, I can get, someone, get a good scheme, someone gets open that way. But, like, Saquon Barkley is both a running back and the guy you should be paying most attention to. Like, that should never happen on a specific situation. If that happens, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster by the Philadelphia Eagles, who, again, needed a win here and now are almost certainly going to have to go on the road. Again, Tampa Bay, I still think they're going to be favored to win that game. I don't know if that's the case, though. I actually wouldn't be shocked if Vegas favors Philadelphia. Again, both teams coming off of weird games, but again, Tampa Bay won, at least. They didn't get crushed by the Giants, so we'll see. But, even if you win that game, then you're probably going to have to go to San Francisco. Maybe you'll get lucky and go to Dallas. Neither one feel like great options, and this is a team that I think we were talking about as potential Super Bowl favorites just a little over a month ago, we were talking about them in that capacity. So the fact that they were that close and instead end up as a, wild card team who's going to be the 5 seed because they did start the season so well, but are going to be, not strong contenders at this point, just due to their play, which has just been one of the more surprising things I've ever seen, I think, in a situation like this. Definitely, a rough spot for the Eagles. And again, you do kind of want to sit here and say, well, maybe they can turn it around, run the ball, get Jalen Hurts involved in the running game, maybe come playoff time, just their experience and the fact that Jalen Hurts can run the ball, and maybe at this point they'll say, you know what, screw it, he's all we have, let's just have him run a bunch, because he's not, they don't do that a ton, except for tush-push situations typically. That's probably your best bet at this point, but yeah, what a disaster for Philadelphia. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.